Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for a webinar session. My name is Kelly Jewett Fernandez. I'm a citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe in North Central South Dakota, and I serve as the Chief Development Officer here at ACES in the Boulder office. Thank you all so much for joining us today. As other folks continue to log in, I would like to let you all know that we are recording the session today, and we will be sharing it with all of the registered attendees and more broadly through the ACES network. We'll also be posting the video on the ACES website in the days following the session today. Please provide any questions or comments that you might have using the chat feature in our Zoom account today. We will be fielding those questions towards the end of the hour, and we welcome any questions that you might have and directed at any of our panelists as well. Before we kick off, I'd like to mention a few ACES-related reminders for the upcoming year. We are so excited to be hosting our ACES in Canada National Gathering, March 4th through 6th at the Hyatt Regency in Vancouver, BC. If you are a professional and interested in submitting a session proposal, you can do so at this time. Please visit the website for more information about that. We're also thrilled to be going back to the Pechanga Resort Casino in Temecula, California, April 10th through the 12th for our annual Leadership Summit. And as many of you may already know, we'll be in Palm Springs, California, October 6th through the 8th next year for the national conference. If there are college students on this session today, or if you have college students within your network, please be sure to check the ACES website beginning in January for updates regarding our academic scholarship programs for next year. Thanks again for joining us. I'm now going to hand it off to our friends and partners at Salesforce, who will be sharing their contributions, experience, and successes as team members there at Salesforce. But before I do that, I'd like to welcome Isau first for a land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, ACES, for hosting us here today. I work with Salesforce as well, and so you'll get to meet the team pretty soon. My name is Esau Sanchez-Diaz. And I am originally from Oaxaca in Mexico, so I'm Zapotec. And now I live in the beautiful land of the Ohlone people here in Oakland, California, and which is from where I talking to you today. I am honored to be part of this team and to acknowledge the land in which I stand today. I know our ancestors had to go through a lot of pain and they were displaced and exploited and colonized and pushed away from this beautiful land. And so I just want to, share some thoughts on that, or send some thoughts on that, and acknowledge, all the history that took place here. I also want to be respectful and send my thoughts to them. And we recommend that people go and look at the place where, they live and what tribes or what communities used to live there before. By visiting native-land.ca. And if you have any questions about, how is it that we do the land acknowledgement here at Salesforce, et cetera, feel free to reach out after the event or during the Q&A. With that being said, I also want to talk a little bit about who we are here at Salesforce. And you probably know about Salesforce. It's a large corporation here in the US, high-tech industry, et cetera. And within the company, we have what we call employee resource groups, ERGs for short. And WINDforce is one of them, which is the majority of the people who are going to be talking to you here are part of. And it is just basically an organization that has employees that are Indigenous or have allies too. And the idea is to promote who we are internally here, to basically change the stereotypes and the wrong perceptions of Indigenous people that people have within the company, to show who we really are, to bring some of our culture and our traditions and our ways of living here into the company and educate people. In addition to that, we also believe in the fact that we all have a place here at Salesforce, right? Indigenous professionals have a place here at Salesforce. And so being in events like this, is something that is very important for us, so that people can see that there's people who look like you here on this side of the door, if you will, in the corporate world. And hopefully that will motivate you to reach out, create a network with us, work with us, and eventually, who knows, maybe join us and be a peer of us here at Salesforce. So super happy to be here, very excited to be at this event and to have the opportunity to talk to you all. Now I'm gonna pass it to Mele, who is gonna be introducing the panel, and then we can go from there to the discussion. Thanks, Mele.
Thanks, Asul. Really appreciate it for that land acknowledgement and WINDforce intro. We want to make this session really interactive, fun, and engaging. So we're going to open it up to all of you to ask your questions in the Zoom chat, like it was mentioned before towards the end. Just to make sure that you're familiar with the Zoom chat, I want to encourage all of you to introduce yourselves to the group. So before we meet today's presenters, I really just want to learn a little bit more about all of you. So if you want to and you're comfortable, feel free to share where you're joining us from today. We'd be really excited to learn from where you're tuning in. And I see some people have already actually put in their location. So thank you, Helen and Ray. Awesome. So we have San Diego. I myself am joining from Fremont, California. So this is the original custodians of the land here in Fremont. We're the Ohlone people. Awesome. Cool. So feel free to keep entering in your locations, throughout the session too. And we also look forward to your questions. So I'm really excited to introduce our incredible leaders from Salesforce. Let me share a little bit more about myself. My name is Mele, program manager at Salesforce on the Trailhead platform team. And I've been working with WINDforce specifically as the global communications chair. And WINDforce is really important to me because it helps me show up at work. I identify as a Pacific Islander and my family's from Tonga. And WINDforce was the first place that I was able to meet other Tongans like myself. They held an event with a Tongan singer named Fatai. And I found that to be really impactful for me to see that representation on that scale. And I had to find out, who is this group and can I get involved with them? So I've been involved ever since. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to pass it to our panelists now. And I see more locations coming into the chat. So Portland, Oregon, awesome. Pittsburgh, New York. I see Colorado Springs, Cupertino, California, New Mexico. Love that everybody else is kind of mentioning, what tribes they're affiliated with, as well as the original custodians of the land from where they're joining. Awesome. Tucson too. Cool. So I'm going to pass it to Aso back, actually, so you can talk about your role and your involvement with WINDforce. And I'd love for the rest of our panelists to talk about, same thing, your name, role, involvement. And we'll have you kick it off, Aso.
Of course, I was on mute. Thanks for sending it back to me, Mele. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm the global president of WINDforce, our organization here at Salesforce. And we are super excited to be here. This is one of the type of events that we really want to continue to engage in and participate in, so that we can have the touch points and interaction with Native and Indigenous professionals, right? And then, like I said, hopefully, eventually, they will be our peers as well. And speaking of somebody who was an intern here with us and now is one of our peers, let me introduce you to Lee Johnson. Go ahead, Lee.
Hi, everyone. I was a former intern for Salesforce last summer, 2020, and I got to be a full-time security analyst starting last year of December. I've been involved with WINDforce since my internship, and I just help as a resource and helping hand whenever they're driving any initiatives or projects. And I'm super happy to be one of the panelists today. And I now will pass it over to Tom.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Eaton. I'm a director of customer success here at Salesforce. I'm also a member of the Osage Nation. And similar to Mele, I got involved with WINDforce this last year because I was inspired to finally, after many years of being in corporate life, of being able to bring my authentic self to work and be embraced by a community that supported me and uplifted me. And as a result, I ran for our global leadership team, and I'm the vice president of WINDforce this year. I'm also a mentor in a program that we have within our customer success group called Mentorship Circles. And so I enjoy being able to, connect with folks that are in the early part of their careers and talk about some of the things, the challenges I've had over the course of my career and how they can avoid those pitfalls. So I'm going to be excited to talk about that a little bit later in the program. I'm going to pass it over to Margot.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. I'm Margot Tollefson. I'm a solution engineer here at Salesforce, also a proud member of the Cherokee Nation. Really excited to be here today. I'm so honored. I joined WINDforce earlier this year. We kind of spun up a Texas hub, and then I'm also now on the global WINDforce team as the events chair. So really looking forward to today's discussion. Tiani, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tiani. I am a senior recruiting coordinator here at Salesforce. I'm also part of the WINDforce West Coast leadership, and I am a native Hawaiian. I joined Salesforce about a year ago, and within a few months, I already knew I wanted to find a community of like-minded individuals here, and WINDforce has been that for me, just a space to feel safe and connect with others. So I'm really excited to be here and be part of this panel. I'll pass it back to you, Melly.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate you sharing more about yourselves. Let's, kick off the conversation. So my first question to the group is, I know a lot of us are in differing stages of our career journeys. And so, can, this group today tell me more about that and the different challenges and opportunities that you may have had? Maybe Margot, you can take this first.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, a bulk of my career has kind of been in this tech consulting space in a lot of different capacities. I started at a bigger company and have had some bigger company experience like Salesforce throughout my career so far, but also I've worked at some startups and some smaller companies. And kind of reflecting on all of this, they've really each taught me something different. And I've learned something new and had different experiences at each. When I graduated college, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And as I'm getting older, I'm learning that is okay. And I don't know if it ever actually changes. I think at a certain point, you just kind of hone in on your interests and skills, and that kind of brings new opportunities. Like WINDforce, for example, you kind of find passion projects, and then that opens up new doors. So definitely something I'm learning. But, as I've kind of looked back on my career so far, my first job out of college was really kind of learning those fundamentals and basics of just working. How do you deal with a company culture and different different teams that you're working with, and how do you handle work expectations, and just kind of being at a full-time job coming out of college. And then, going into my second role at my second company, it was a smaller startup company. And that really kind of got me more, I realized, to kind of my compensation goals, made me a little bit more comfortable with taking on more responsibility, working with customers, not just an internal team, and gained a little bit more confidence for myself, I would say. And then by the time I made it to Salesforce, it was more exploratory, kind of exploring different opportunities, side projects, and kind of honing those skills that I didn't realize I was gathering from my other companies and other jobs, and brought those with me. At Salesforce, I feel like I've really kind of branched out, tried new things, gotten new experiences, and taken myself really out of my comfort zone, which I think has been really exciting for me personally. But in terms of just overall challenges and opportunities, there's been a ton of challenges throughout all of our careers, I'm sure. But just kind of thinking through it, and whether it's a tough boss or long hours or a tough coworker, difficult day, day job. It's really my first job was very computer science heavy. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. I was struggling every day. I didn't find joy in it, didn't find passion in it. And it was a tough experience because I kept thinking like, wow, I'm not excelling my career. I'm not moving myself forward. And as I've kind of reflected on that, as I've gotten older and moved through different experiences, it's made me realize that just taught me what I didn't want to do, which is just as important as finding that passion or that experience that you just really enjoy. So I think just your career in general is really about learning about yourself and what you like and dislike. And every opportunity is really teaching me something new.
You are really shaping career journey. I know it's one thing is like reading someone's LinkedIn or seeing their experiences, and you don't really get to hear how they felt about it, what they leaned into, and the lessons that you learned along the way. So really appreciate you sharing that. And it's really interesting to hear from your perspective, sitting in the sales organization. I kind of want to take a look, walk around the organization, see like from a customer success perspective, we have two, really amazing people on our panel today, who are stationed in the customer success org within Salesforce. So maybe we'll have you, Tom. Do you want to share more about your challenges and opportunities you faced, and how do those impact where you are in Salesforce?
Thanks, Melee. Listening to Margot's story, even though I'll just say I'm a seasoned veteran in our industry versus where probably Margot's been over the last few years. For me, one of the biggest challenges was overcoming the traditional idea of what it means to progress your career. A lot of times, historically, it's been you got to climb the corporate ladder, which means you go from an individual contributor to a team lead to a manager to a director to and keep climbing up. And what I've come to find as I've moved from, billion-dollar organizations that were very bureaucratic, and that was the case, is that, you found your niche and you work your way straight up, which, if you don't like that job, you're going to be in a pickle because you're going to stay in it as you climb vertically within that role. Then I went to a startup and realized, you don't get defined by your role. You really just hustle hard every day, do what's needed, and then you help progress the career, the company forward, which also enhances your career. So then as I transitioned, later on into joining Salesforce, it really opened my eyes to really consider my career more of a mesh or a star pattern. I came as a customer success manager, which means we help customers that have bought our product make sure they're successful with the product, they get the value out of what they've invested in us. But also within our customer success group, there's renewals teams. So they're the ones that help us where our customers' contracts are coming up for renewal, making sure that goes smoothly. We also have our technical support team that, everybody knows what they would do. But we also have an architect team. We call them Skippy internally. They're strategic architects. So they're the more technical folks within the CSG, Customer Success Group umbrella. So basically, once you get into the organization, you can look around and say, oh, I'm more technical, so maybe I might want to think about moving over to our technical architect team. Or maybe I'm really analytical, I'm good with numbers, and I'm a little bit of a salesman. Well, maybe you might want to move over into the renewals team. I really like helping customers with specific challenges, and you can move it over into support, and that sort of thing. Or you can look across the organization, even in the sales team, and think about, maybe I'm a solution architect. Maybe I like to build demos for customers that will help them see a vision for their business, and then, get the satisfaction of helping them realize that vision and start that journey. So I think for me, the biggest takeaway that I would have, or what I would share, is not to think of the corporate ladder. Do away with that structure and think about more of a star or a mesh pattern, that it's okay that maybe I do a lateral move or I move into another team and I move up from there versus where I'm sitting today. And I think part of that is really understanding your why, what motivates you, as Simon Sinek says. If you know what motivates you, what your currency is in your career, what you get satisfaction out of. That'll help drive you in the right direction once you're in the right company. So that would be my advice, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, you're definitely teaching me. I'm taking that, back as advice for myself in my career. Asa, well, how about you? Because you also sit in the customer success org too.
Yeah, no, thanks, Melly. Yeah, I had an interesting journey coming here to the US. I had the opportunity to come to get my master's from UC Berkeley a while back, and I took that opportunity. And the first thing that I faced when I was here initially was what people, and I didn't know what was named at the time, but now people call it, or I guess people called it back then that too, but I just didn't know the name, imposter syndrome. So here I am in Berkeley, coming from a very poor region in Mexico, from a college who nobody knew where it was, and had classmates who went to undergrad to MIT, Stanford, and so on, right? And so it was difficult to try to understand how is it that I fit in? What did I do to deserve a spot there at this prestigious university? And all the pressure that came with it, right? And there was a real struggle. I had to really I almost took some time off from college, from my master's, to be able to come back and adapt to it, right? And luckily it was a 2-year program. So the first semester was kind of bad. The second was better. The third was way better. And the fourth, I was, a top student, but it was interesting. And so having that, and I don't know if many of you have faced that, but just us not being represented all around, and just you sitting at the table and seeing that you're the only person who looks like the way you do, and who has that kind of background, makes you feel like you're not part of the organization in some occasions, makes you feel like, or can make you feel like you're not somebody who belongs there, right? That's not your place, And so after I graduated from my master's, I had the opportunity to go and work for a very large consulting firm called Accenture. And so we do a lot of technology implementations and management implementations and I was in the high-tech industry. So my clients were high-tech, like think about Yahoo, eBay, Microsoft, etc. And then after that, I left to go to work for eBay, actually, who was one of my clients. And then I went to work for Apple. And now I came to Salesforce. And the reason why I tell you about my journey is because once that I got over that threatening, imposter syndrome case that I had at UC Berkeley, I felt like I had to go and walk into any room and talk to anybody, right? I may not be the most polished person there, with the most polished language and messaging, but I am not afraid to go and talk to whoever I need to talk to. And in my job, as it happens, I usually go talk to C-level executives, right, in the client companies that we work with or that buy our products. And so we have sometimes difficult conversations. We have easy conversations. We have, before COVID, dinners and events and things like that. I hang out. And so I don't know, all of a sudden I feel like when I walk into a room, I don't feel like I'm the stranger that is walking in there who looks different than everybody else, right? And that motivates me to want to meet more people who look like me and tell them, yeah, it is possible, right? You can also walk into that room. You can also be next to me, next to that C-level guy, and contribute as much as any other person who looks different, to us can contribute, right? So it's just something that I have learned and I wanted to share here today. So
thank you for sharing that. I'm hearing this common thread from all of you so far that shared about really leaning into like your journey, and it doesn't need to look like you've gone from X, Y to Z, and it doesn't have to be super logical. It can be, you can really make it your own and make it yours, which I really appreciate hearing about. Speaking of incorporating what we've learned in the past and the journeys that we've been on, we're partnering with ACES today, and Lee, you've been part of ACES. So I'm curious to hear from your perspective, interning before joining Salesforce. Can you tell us more about, your partnership with ACES and how it feels now to work and partner with, ACES at this scale with Salesforce?
Yeah, thank you, Millie. My junior year of my undergrad, I was browsing the ACES internship and scholarship website where I stumbled across an Oracle internship. that was partnered with ACES. I applied, and about 2 months later, I got contacted by a Oracle recruiter to intern at their Reston, Virginia hub. So for the summer of June through August, I was interning as a cloud solution security engineer, where I got to do some competitive analysis of Oracle's cloud security tools versus other third-party tools that were their competitors. And with that internship, I think it helped me get my foot in the door with my Salesforce internship, because my recruiting manager as well as my hiring manager were very impressed that I had 2 other internships under my belt before starting at Salesforce. And I think ACES provides wonderful opportunities like that for individuals to succeed.
That's awesome. So it must be like a full circle moment for you having to do this, panel with us today and, working with ACES before. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So, let's talk a little bit more about WINDforce itself. I think I also saw a question about that in the chat too. So I just wanted to pose this question to you all. How does WINDforce or Salesforce in general help empower you to bring your authentic selves to work? And what other benefits have you experienced as being part of WINDforce? Maybe I can offer some of my thoughts and then pass it over to you all. I feel that Salesforce really shows full dedication to our quality groups or our ERGs. I find, as opposed to other places I've worked in the past, that our ERGs really shape our work culture and really help foster that sense of belonging. I had mentioned this before, that I was able to find other Indigenous people like myself. I found a family within WINDforce, which I never would have seen in when I first started my career in tech. I didn't really feel like I belong. And it just made all the difference for me. And it really motivates me every day that at work. I get to do amazing work, in my own role, but also amazing work with WINDforce too. So I'm curious what the group thinks. Maybe I'll pass this back to Lee. What do you think? How does WINDforce help empower you to bring your authentic self to work, and what kind of benefits you've experienced from being part of WINDforce too?
Yeah, I think it's great to see that Salesforce Cares is deeply about having an employee resource group. I've always did feel kind of off being alone in the tech field, so it's nice to actually go to a group to see that there are other Indigenous people that work for the company, and it's very comforting considering that I'm always away from home. And one of the benefits I experienced at WINDforce is just learning about different cultural backgrounds from all the different members from WINDforce. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I want to underscore that too. I, wouldn't have known about, all of you and the cultures that, you come from. So I really appreciate that WINDforce allows that opportunity for me to get to know you all on a deeper level like that. Margot, how about you? How does WINDforce and Salesforce help empower you to bring your authentic self to work?
Yeah, I think Salesforce as a whole just encourages us really to be ourselves, encourages us to bring a different perspective, kind of gives us that opportunity to do so, which at other companies, even that I've been at, they really don't encourage that. And speaking up or bringing that new perspective is not what they want or expect you to do. So I think, Melee, just like what you and Lee, you both said, I think the fact that Salesforce as a whole has these ERG groups and WINDforce in particular, I mean, it's given me a chance to bring a new perspective, educate myself on a new perspective, be more comfortable talking about what I stand for, hearing what other people stand for. I think it's just been a really great opportunity. And like I said, it kind of goes back to encouragement. I think I feel encouraged by my team, by you all, by everyone I've met at Salesforce to be myself. And I think on top of that, WINDforce has just given me the opportunity to meet all of you and people around the globe, and learn about their different experiences and learn that you're not alone in whatever you're going through. And that, kind of back to what we were saying earlier, that everyone's journey is different, and hearing about those experiences, I think helps us all. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to underscore that too, that sharing is really important. And, Salesforce makes a conscious effort to put together programs like the Equality Mentorship Program, Tom, that you had mentioned earlier. I just wanted to briefly mention that I was part of a program too called Career Milestones. And that was a 6-month structured program, worked with a talent partner who helped me advocate for myself to my manager. And my manager was just so impressed with the fact that I was advocating for myself and really pushing for, this is what I want out of my career. And, this is the steps I think we can take to get there. So I'm curious, and also being connected to sponsors too. I think that's also a big thing at Salesforce, is really getting connected with other folks in more senior roles, at least for me. So Tom, do you want to talk about the Equality Mentorship Program and, your experience with that, how that helped you build a community that supports you, and how do you advise others to leverage mentorship?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was privileged to be a part of our Equality Mentorship Program this last summer, where interns that were coming in were matched up with an equality mentor. So not just a mentor that can relate to you about your career and talk about that. We certainly did talk about those things, but also understand your journey as a underrepresented minority coming into a corporate environment. So we can have those type of trusted conversations as well, and give some advice on how do you show up in a meeting and be your authentic self and make space for yourself and those around you. So that was really rewarding. And the intern that I was partnered with, she also became a member of our full-time employee group or team in the customer success. And we've continued on that mentor-mentee relationship past the internship program. And so, but now things are a bit, changed, because it's not so much about helping her, how do I land a full-time job at Salesforce? What do I have to do to show that? Now it's, how do I become a successful success manager within this organization and also bring my authentic self to work as well? And I saw a question in the chat that I briefly want to touch on. Folks were asking if there's other equality groups that are that we have within Salesforce. I believe we're up to a dozen, if I'm not mistaken, different equality groups. So we've got WINDforce, Outforce, Latino Force, VetForce, GenForce. There's a bunch of them, EarthForce, and we partner across those different groups. One of the ones that I first joined was actually called FaithForce, which is the first time in my career where I felt empowered to bring my faith with me to work and be able to talk about it without feeling like I needed to hide that aspect of myself, but do it in a respectful manner, but also learn about other faiths within the organization as well, of people bringing those perspectives. So I love that aspect of it, where it's not just about us, it's about all of us and what we bring, and from our culture, from our faith, from our whatever it may be, and bring that into the organization. It makes us better overall. So that's, one thing I'll say about mentorship, if you get an opportunity to join Salesforce as an intern and you're looking around for somebody that can be a mentor that looks like you, has your culture, your background, you can certainly reach out to not only the WINDforce Slack channel, where we all reside and live and breathe every day, and we'll help you connect with somebody within the Indigenous community if that's what you're looking for. But also there's other groups that you can join and ask for some mentorship there. And I don't know of anybody within Salesforce that would say no to helping you find the right mentor. I know folks within our group, we would be happy to either connect you with somebody within the Indigenous community or do it ourselves. We're here to build community.
Thanks, Tom. Asu, I think you're also part of that Equality Mentorship Program. Do you want to share more?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the question. And I just posted a link to the ERGs that we have, the 12 ones that we have. And there was a question there that I could answer now too about Native American Force. So WINDforce is the group that sort of like is the big umbrella for all the Native or Indigenous people, that work at Salesforce. And we define Indigenous not only as Native American, even though we're a US-based company, but rather as a global, a group of people, right, who are all around the world. Like I am Zapotec from Mexico, Mele is, from Tonga, Tiani is native Hawaiian, etc. Right? I know Lee, Margot, and Tom are more like Native Americans. And so, we find people from different indigenous experiences across the globe that work for our company, and then we connect and we learn from each other and the ways that we live our lives back then, and the different, perspective and traditions and things that we honor and that we care for. And back to the question that you asked me, yeah, definitely, it is important to have mentors, and at Salesforce, people are always trying to help out and trying to find the right connection for you so you can grow your career, right? The same way that there are not that many Indigenous people here at Salesforce, if you think about the structure, of the organization, the higher up that you go, the less people of color that you see. And so there's a lot of interest in the company in general to try to make that presence of people of color at the top, a little bit more prominent, right? Which is fair because we all have a lot of skills, right? And things that we can bring to the table and value that we can bring to the organization. So, and definitely the way that we look and the color of our skin doesn't mean that we are not able to do that. And so, there's the mentorship program is just one of the vehicles, right, that the company is trying to establish so that we can have the opportunity to learn from others who are more experienced than us and higher up in the food chain, and then provide some guidance as to how is it that we can sort of like follow that same journey and that same path that they did, and then generate opportunities for us to be part of that higher management to upper management, if you will. And so, yeah, that's kind of like what I can share about my experience in terms of mentorship.
Thank you. Yeah, just like what was mentioned earlier, there are structured programs, but just generally the culture at Salesforce is that you can really reach out to anyone and they'd be happy to talk to you. So I can't tell you how many times I've, talked to so many random people at Salesforce and really just gotten a chance to learn from them, what does business look like on your side? Like, what does your function look like? And they, are willing to jump on 30 minutes or coffee chat with me. And it's just been awesome. So really encourage you and, at Salesforce or whatever organization you're at to really reach out, because you'd be surprised who would be willing to take that meeting. Awesome. So just want to talk a little bit more about, celebrating ourselves. I think that's also important when you're talking to a mentor, is to really, talk about your accomplishments, what you're proud of. And so I'm curious, from our panel today, what's an accomplishment that you're proud of, and how do you market yourself for success as you do great work? And I actually want to pose this question to Margot.
Yeah, this one, marketing myself and my successes hasn't always been my strongest suit. And I've actually relied a lot on mentors to help, bring that out of me and help them say, wow, look at these things you've accomplished, or, this is a really interesting path. Let's dive into that. So I think that's a really great way to use mentors, is to talk to them about, hey, I'm doing all these things, but I don't know how to really explain them or showcase what I've done. And so that's really helped me a lot. But in terms of an accomplishment that I'm proud of, honestly, really looking back, it's my degree in college. I majored in math, and it wasn't easy. And there were not a lot of women, or Native women for that matter, in the program. So being able to feel like I'm somewhat helping pave that way for Native women in STEM was extremely inspiring to me. And I think that's what's kind of pushed me into this direction of being in technology and, finding so much passion in WINDforce and kind of intersecting the two. It's just been really what motivates me, I think, every day to show up to work and back to, bringing my authentic self, in hopes that I can inspire someone else to do the same. And, thinking about how I've tried to learn to market my successes a little bit better is I've tried to just write everything down. I'm not always the best at that, I have to admit, but I think, speaking with so many people and I forget some of the things that I've worked on or accomplished. And I think writing all of that down and having one central location where you can look back, even if it's just on a tough day, and saying, wow, look at all the amazing things I accomplished this week or this month or this quarter, this year. Even if it's something small, like you completed a fun course you were wanting to do, or gained a new skill, or talk to someone interesting. I think writing all of that down and having that to share with someone else is really important. And I've started to just have like quarterly meetings with my manager to say, hey, here's my kind of quarterly write-up, and here's what I've done. And this is what I'm kind of proud of for these last few months. And that's really helped me to kind of share my knowledge and share my accomplishments. And I think also just with your peers, sharing small things that you're proud of helps them also share things. And then you can support each other and be aware of what everyone else around you is working on, which might bring another cool opportunity to partner with them or learn more about them, or learning back to learning different perspectives. I think just constantly talk about what you're doing and share your knowledge with others is really impactful. And it really doesn't have to be anything big. I think starting small and it's just as important as a giant accomplishment that you might think is going to change someone's life. But I think just speaking about it and getting used to it is the best way to start.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely celebrate all the wins, big or small. Thanks for telling us about your inspiring story. And I really can't underscore that enough, to really talk about your accomplishments to everyone you meet, because it inspires other people to do the same and to take that space for themselves, and also talk about you too, which doesn't hurt. Lee, how about you? What's an accomplishment that you're proud of, and how do you market yourself for success as you do great work?
Yeah, I have to be in the same boat as Margot. Probably my most proudest success is getting my undergrad in IT and computer science. Graduating from high school, I didn't think college was for me. I was working construction jobs at the time, thinking I'm going to run with this my entire life. But after working 10 hours a week for 7 days, I realized that was not feasible for me, or not the life I wanted. So even though I didn't think I was good enough for college, I enrolled myself into a community college. I got my associates, and then I was able to get a full ride transfer scholarship to my 4-year college to get my undergrad. It was a major struggle every day. I don't know how many times of sleepless nights I've had to pass my calculus or other math exams, but that's probably my greatest accomplishment to date. And how I market myself for success, continuous learning is a big factor for me. In my career field, if you're not willing to update or adapt to new technologies, your skills will become quickly obsolete. So continuous learning, getting a mentor. I think throughout my internships, I've always made it a point to get one mentor at least. And currently I have 6 right now in my full-time role. So always being willing to learn, always willing to lean on your resources is my greatest advice to market yourself for success.
Awesome. Great advice all around. Really impressed with the caliber of people here today, and so honored to talk with you all. Cool. So that kind of rounds out the questions that I had for this group. So now we're going to open up questions to the audience. And I know we've had some questions come into the Q&A chat. So if you don't mind me kind of just like taking a look from the very beginning to make sure that we didn't miss anything. I also encourage you all in the audience too to continue entering in your questions. So let's see what we have here. We talked about, WINDforce, what other groups are there at Salesforce. Let's see what else we have here. What keeps you engaged in your career at Salesforce? This is a question for Tom.
For me, it's all about, aligning with our corporate vision. Our CEO, talks a lot about that we're in the business of not only as a company of making money, but also in doing good. And so that's one of the things that actually inspired me to apply to Salesforce, because I was a customer of Salesforce's for 13 years prior to that. And I went to one of our corporate events that we have out in San Francisco every year. And the focus on nonprofits and how we give time and money and technology to nonprofits for free. And we're encouraged to volunteer at least a minimum of 56 hours a year with nonprofits. And we get time and space to do that. Those are the type of things that keep me engaged, because it aligns with my personal values that I have of giving back to my community and contributing, as well as then, there's the corporate side. This is how I make money. And I love our ecosystem that we have built as a company, and talking with customers and understanding how they're using our technology to transform their business. So the marrying of those two things, were actually more than two things. I can bring my authentic self to work. It aligns with my values on giving back to the community. And then also I'm aligned to our corporate vision as a company of where we're going. So you bring those all together, and it makes it easy to come to work in the morning. And I'd advise anyone, even if you don't end up coming to Salesforce, find that type of environment in which you'll thrive, and you'll never have a day of work, so to speak. It's that's what I would advise anybody to do.
Thanks, Tom. So the next question from the Q&A chat is around what would you advise someone who is new and barely getting into this field? Let's pose this question to Margot. Do you want to share a little bit more on this?
Sure. Yeah, I think I know for myself, I don't have, math, I didn't take any sort of technology related courses. It was straight numbers. And I think what's really important to do, and what I've tried to learn to do, is understand what basic skills am I learning from my experience, whether that is work experience or experience with your family or friends. Like with math, for example, I was like, okay, I'm learning how to problem solve, or like how to think logically, or how to, take a complex problem and simplify it. And so I think just understanding what those skills you can bring to the table are, will benefit any role. And I think definitely, especially in the technology space, I think identifying just those basic skills will help then translate into almost any role. I think if you can just identify those, and that's something even that I would encourage you all to do, just looking for jobs as a whole. Like, what do I like to do day to day? From the perspective of like, do I like to communicate with an external client, or do I like to, sit and just constantly code or develop or software develop or something? And don't look too much at a specific role or title. I think look at like the day-to-day role, skills you're going to learn in the day-to-day job, which I think is just going to be the most important. And like Tom said, it's going to help you find that reason to get up every day, because it's going to be things that you're really good at and stuff that you have experience in.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Margot. Really appreciate that. I also had something to say, just really simply, if you have a seat at the table, you belong there, and take space, because, there are other people who are not in that room that, are definitely, vying for a place to get there. And so, take space. Whether you realize it or not, you're paving a way for everyone coming after you. So just wanted to share that. I have another question, and I'm going to pose this to ASU. How do you create and support effective teams in the workplace, especially in this digital first landscape?
Sorry, Melly, would you mind repeating that one?
Yeah, sure. How do you create and support effective teams in the workplace, especially, with us being, more digital first and virtual?
Yeah, no, great question. And just to add to that comment that you made about, just having a seat at the table. And I saw some phrase that said, walk into the room like your ancestors sent you, right? And so just walk in there with confidence. They are with you, and they're going to help you navigate through all the challenges there. So, but anyway, yeah, we try to, now that we're remote, it's kind of, kind of difficult to establish that nice conversations that we used to have face to face, right? And actually, I was thinking about that when we shared the first slide here in the event, and the picture is of members from WINDforce from like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, oh, we should get together and take another picture like us together, because believe it or not, we have not met in person. None of us here, except Melly and I, have met in person. I don't think I met Lee in person, but anyway, and so as we are virtual, we try to, create events. We try to be together by organizing events that touch on similarities, right? Similar things and similar interests that we all have. And that's one of the things that we have done. And then we also have, in terms of outside of WINDforce, but more like work related, we always try to have fun things that we do from time to time. I've been in events in which we do maybe virtual wine tasting, or they send you a kit to make pizza at home. And so we all log into the Zoom, right, and start making our pizza and, put in the oven while we're on the Zoom talking with each other, following instructions and stuff. And so it's not only work, but it's also fun things that we try to do to stay together and build that cohesiveness around our teams, right? Obviously, COVID has made things super difficult. And I think in the company in general, there's this idea that if you need to step out of the office, away from the camera, and take some time off or whatever, an hour, a minute, 10, 20, whatever a day, you're most than welcome to do that, right? So people understand that we all are living under different challenges, and so it's acceptable to make a space to stay healthy for your own. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm really jealous of that pizza making.
Oh yeah.
You should have told me so I could join too.
Maybe we'll do one for WINDforce. Actually, we should. Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
Talk to Sam about the budget. Yeah.
That's why you should join WINDforce. We'll do pizza baking together. Cool. So one of the questions that came into the chat was around, are there similar groups to WINDforce at other companies? Do you ever collaborate with them? Curious to hear your thoughts on this from ASO and Tom, if you'd like to take that.
Yeah. When I joined WINDforce, and right after that, COVID started to hit, and the Navajo Nation was getting hit really heavily. And so there was this lady, I don't remember her name. She doesn't work for Salesforce, but she used to be the CIO or the CTO of the Obama administration. So she was pretty high up there. Megan Smith is her name. And so she built this nonprofit, and she contacted us at Salesforce, and then a whole bunch of other ERGs that were composed of Indigenous people and Native people in the Silicon Valley. So it was us, it was Google, it was Facebook, and Microsoft, and who have similar groups like ours. And we all got together like maybe 2 or 3 times, right? And brainstorming on how is it that our company should, use all the money that we have and maybe buy, protective equipment for the Navajo Nation, and then send it over. And so we got some critical mass and escalated the request to our management and all the way up to the C-level people. And at some point, I know Salesforce delivered a whole bunch of, protective equipment to the Navajo Nation last year. So, and that was just one example of the cooperation that we did with other companies that have similar groups like ours. Now, I have to say, since that moment, we haven't checked in again. So I think this question is just a reminder that maybe we need to establish that macro relationship so that we can make a bigger impact, right, in the community.
Awesome.
I'll jump in there just quickly. Yeah, so internally, we partner with a lot of groups within our organization. There's a lot of intersectionality with, like say, EarthForce, and what their mission is, and protecting the environment. So we've done projects with them. Also, VetForce. It's Margot and Samantha from our team actually helped set up an event that was with GenForce, which is for our generational equality group, as well as VetForce, which is our veterans, military veterans equality group and allies, and also with us, where we we brought in one of the remaining code talkers to talk about his experience during World War II in Iwo Jima. And it was just powerful hearing about not only what he did to help in the Navajo code talkers did to help us win the war, essentially, but also his life afterwards and how it inspired him to get involved with his leadership within the Navajo Nation and try to drive change and making the experience for Navajos better. Those type of things, it just inspire me. And we did one earlier this year with WINDforce. We did partner with a nonprofit called Wear Blue. And they had a month, I believe it was around Memorial Day, where they were honoring women that had died in combat, and specifically Indigenous women that had died in combat. And so we did if I remember the name correctly, a Paestawa. She's Hopi. She was one of the first women combatants in Iraq that died in combat. And so we were honoring her. And so we partnered up with WINDforce, and we rallied groups within our organization to go out and walk, run, bike, do something to go out and move and earn miles and points. And so that we could raise money for the Wear Blue organization for supporting military survivors of their folks that had died and families that have died in combat. So we do a lot of that. We try to bring folks together because it's not just, if we're talking to the same group of folks that are supporters and allies of WINDforce and nobody else, then it's kind of like you're talking to the same group and they heard our story. So we've got to figure out ways and how do we broaden that message. And that's how we do that by being partners and allies with other equality groups within the organization.
Thanks, Tom. And thank you everyone for taking all of those questions. I'm going to pass it to Tiani to take us home.
Hi, everyone. I believe we're just pulling up some slides, but a big thank you to all the panelists, for the ACES team, and for all of you for joining and participating in our conversation. I swear every time I hear you all talk, I learn something new. I can't emphasize enough how much this WINDforce community has really helped empower me throughout my journey here at Salesforce to feel heard and seen and really bring my voice to the table. I'm grateful to work with you all, and I kind of want to share with everyone here how you can join us. I noticed a question in the chat regarding the application tracking system or just the job process, and I wanted to touch a bit on it before moving forward. My biggest suggestion when it comes to that is keep doing what you're doing. You're already networking, you're already interested. Do that. Maybe also looking over the job rec and really making sure your resume aligns with the qualities that they're looking for, the team's looking for, and then keep getting new experiences. Everything you can add to that just amplifies you and makes you look like a better candidate for us to take a look at. I'm going to dive into a few of our top tips. And starting off, getting familiar with our values. Here at Salesforce, we have 4 core values: trust, customer success, innovation, and equality. These values drive our work every day, as you can see with our team, especially talking on WINDforce and our equality initiative here. Another, learn more about our customers and our platforms. When our customers succeed, we succeed. It's pretty simple. And as you can see, we all love to help. The next point I wanted to touch on was use Trailhead. This could kind of go back to gaining more skills. I personally, when I joined Salesforce, used Trailhead to learn a lot about the company. And now I use it to keep brushing up on my skills. It's a great way to build your resume and show Salesforce that you're involved. The last point I want to touch on is clarify your long-term objective. I loved what Tom touched on earlier about careers not being just a ladder, but kind of moving with your passion. We want to help all of our employees succeed. And to do that, it's important that you know what you want and we can support you. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is some of our talent programs, the resources, and how you can reach out to us. The first program, Melly actually touched on another program, but this one is the Insiders program, where candidates can choose a Salesforce employee who's not a part of the hiring team. They get matched with them and they can speak with them more candidly about life at Salesforce. This is a great opportunity for you to ask questions, kind of talk about their day-to-day and not feel the pressure of an interview panel. We also have 2 programs that we've created to ensure a more equitable interview process. And those include interview training certificates that kind of are meant to mitigate all of the biases we see. And then the second is the talent champions, who advocate for our underrepresented minorities and candidates, those who are Black, Latinx, or Indigenous throughout the hiring process. And of course, as you've heard from us, our team's always growing. So we're looking for driven candidates to join our family. Check us out at salesforce.com/careers to learn more about our team and the open roles we have. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to all of us. And with that, a final thank you to you all for joining us. Until next time, we will see you all.